Welcome to the Halftime Show, your world of sports in half the time. I'm Colton Tobias.
And I'm Kiara Fry.
And we thank you for joining us for episode 2 of the Halftime Show. Now, we have a lot to discuss today, but first, Kiara, I want to touch on first the NFL. As it seems like going into week 3 of the season, this has not been the year for the starting quarterback so far, as including Andrew Luck's retirement. We currently have 6 quarterbacks who we thought were going to start the season that are out. Now, I'll go first with my biggest shocker, which is I'm going to stick at home with Ben Roethlisberger, who unfortunately has to miss the remainder of the season because of an elbow injury, and second-year quarterback Mason Rudolph will start in his place. Now, I like Mason. I think he has potential. I saw him play when he was at Oklahoma State. They played Pitt one year, and I mean, he ate Pitt's defense alive. Now, I was at the game over the weekend against Seattle, and he had a bunch of good throws. I think he does have potential, even though he did have that one interception, but you got to give it to him. That really wasn't his fault. I think Dante Moncrief should have had the ball. Yeah. But people are starting to compare him to how Ben Roethlisberger got his start, because he did not start right away. He had to fill in for Tommy Maddox at the start of the 2004 season because he got injured, and then Ben Roethlisberger went on to win every single game he played in the regular season. Now, I don't think that this is the case, though, for Mason Rudolph. I mean, Ben was a first-round pick. He had a better draft grade coming out of college than Mason Rudolph. Now, I'm not trying to bash Rudolph because like I said, I do believe he has potential. But in the end, I seriously believe that the Steelers might miss the playoffs because of this, even though I don't think it hopes their case at all that they are 0-2 at the moment. But I just think that this is going to be too much for the Steelers. Kiara, what are your thoughts on your quarterback?
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying about the comparison of Ben and Mason, and I think that Mason does have a lot of potential to do really well this season, but I agree that it's not quite the same situation as Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that Mason will do well this season, and he's going to feel a little bit of pressure having to start and not really having a strong backup, really. But I don't think that it's going to be as good as some people are thinking it's going to be, and I think that's honestly just Steelers Nation being really hopeful. But transitioning to another quarterback who has an injury, Drew Brees from the Saints is now out with a right thumb injury. And honestly, a lot of people are saying that they think that this is going to really affect the Saints, but I think that Bridgewater is a very good backup for him, and him starting is going to not be that bad for the Saints. I think that he has a strong quarterback. He has a decent amount of experience, and that he'll do well for them.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you, Kiara, because Bridgewater was a great quarterback when he was in Minnesota, because people do forget that he was a first-round pick too, but he just could not stay healthy. But he got a brand new start with the Saints, and I think Bridgewater is going to be very, very motivated by this, because I think it's going to give him a chance to show who he really is, to show that he could potentially be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And not to mention, I mean, Drew Brees has been playing since 2001. I mean, along with Ben, I mean, he's on the tail end of his career, and maybe this could be a chance for Bridgewater to prove himself, to maybe that he could possibly be the heir for Drew Brees when he retires.
Yeah, and I think that's something interesting about all of these quarterbacks not being able to play this season, is that we're seeing a lot of backup quarterbacks starting that are new and young, and also with the retirement and the benching, we're seeing a lot of new quarterbacks, and it's going to be an interesting season this year.
Yes, I agree with you, Kiara, but we are going to have to leave things there. Coming up, we have some NHL talk. Do not go away.
Go to our new website, uview.plainpark.edu.
Go, 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 go.
Join UView
Join EOP. And 3, 2. Join EOP.
I was just saying, grab them now, or else I can sit up.
Join On Point with Politics. 3, 2, 1.
Join Pioneer Sideline.
Loneliest number that you'll ever do.
Welcome back to the halftime show. Now, just because football season has begun, that doesn't mean we still can talk some NHL, as the hockey season is now on the horizon, and we have RJ Garrison in studio today to give us his thoughts on how the offseason turned out. RJ, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, I'm now RJ. Now, it seems like with the look of your tie, I think you seem to be a little anxious to talk about the Penguins. Now, RJ, how do you think the Penguins did during the offseason? Were you impressed with the moves they make? And they did make some pretty big ones.
They definitely made a few big ones, especially when it came to Phil Kessel. That was hands down the biggest headline for the Penguins so far this season, trading him away and bringing in Alex Galchenyuk and a couple of prospects and a draft pick, too. Honestly, not a lot of people seem to be thrilled with that move because it was Phil Kessel that they moved out. But Galchenyuk really hasn't been on that great of teams in his past. Recently coming over from Arizona, and before that, Montreal, who has always had trouble scoring goals and kept bouncing him around on what position they truly wanted. On top of that, they had to trade away Olli Maatta, which kind of hurt a little bit, but Kahun is supposed to be a really, really good replacement up on the forward depth at least. The one I'm kind of worried about, though, is that Brandon Tanev contract. $3 million, I don't think is that bad of a cap hit, but for 6 years, that term is what kind of scares me with that contract there.
Yeah, I'm Kiera. What about you?
I was very sad about the Phil Kessel trade because I love Phil Kessel, but I also think, kind of like RJ said, it was like a necessary move for the Penguins to kind of move forward, especially after having a rough season last season, only making it to the first round of the playoffs and not even really competing that well.
Not even winning a game in the playoffs.
In the first round of the playoffs. So I think that it partially had to do with the mentality, and they needed a change, and I think Galchenyuk could contribute to that change and really get this team going again.
Yeah, I mean, I was upset to see Kessel go as well, knowing that the Pens, I think, possibly would not have won those 2 Stanley Cups without him with all the goals that he scored. But you do have to admit, it just seems like he had a down year this past year with the Penguins, and I guess everyone knows by now that he has some trouble getting along with Evgeny Malkin and Mike Sullivan. But you also have to admit, this is also a great PR move with Arizona because their ticket sales have really gone up. But I want to switch over to the Toronto Maple Leafs because they have signed all of their young talent to extensions as they are going to try to get over the hump because they have not won a playoff series since 2004. RJ, what are your thoughts on the Maple Leafs?
Oh yeah, Toronto's definitely been the major headline in this NHL world at least, especially with the restricted free agent signing of not Austin Matthews. That's their number 1 center, but his number 2, Mitch Marner. That was hanging over everyone's head, and actually I think held up a lot of the other restricted free agents that were out there. But signing up Mitch Marner for the Toronto Maple Leafs needed to get it done. They got it done, but they're well over $10 million in the red zone for cap. They need to either make some serious moves or find some way to avoid it. They can find some way to avoid it because the person that helped write the salary cap rules works for the Toronto Maple Leafs, along with some other trades that they made to help with that situation. Toronto, I also think, could make it over the hump this year. And Finally,
go to the you mean make it over to the hump of the playoffs and go all the way to the final, or what do you think of that?
I wouldn't say finals just yet. They still are very young, but I think this year could be their best year to make it past the first round and slay their own dragon like the Capitals did with us and
with
beat
Boston.
Boston.
You think they can beat Boston?
They could. They have enough talent and enough skill on that team to beat Boston. They just need to work together and play as a team.
Kara, you got any thoughts on that before we go to break?
I think Mitch Marner was definitely the big move for the Maple Leafs this offseason. That was very important to secure him for another season. And I also thought it was really interesting that he was like dead set on playing for the Maple Leafs. And I think that says a lot for the team's mentality moving forward too.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, I think it was a great move for the Maple Leafs, but I just don't know if they still have what it takes to make it over the hump because, in my opinion, I think they have to prove it first. And the fact that they did have their chance to beat Boston this year, but they just could not get over the hump. But either way, let's see how things turn out for this season. RJ, thank you so much for coming on, but we are going to have to take another break. And coming up, we have some MLB talk as the...
The United Student Government at Point Park University, working since the 1970s to solve the issues that matter to you. What concerns do you have about the university? Student life, safety, food service? Send us an email to studentconcerns@pointpark.edu or stop by our office on the 7th floor of the Student Center. You can also attend our weekly open meetings on Mondays at 3:15. Follow us on social media at USG_PPU for more. The United Student Government, by the students, for the students.
The Point Park Sports Network, bringing you live coverage of Pioneer Athletics on Stretch Internet, the home of the River States Conference and the NAIA. Subscribe today for complete access to the Point Park volleyball, baseball, basketball, and soccer teams. Watch live and on-demand broadcasts and don't miss a minute of Point Park Athletics. Head to pointparksports.com/live for broadcast listings. The Point Park Sports Network, your streaming home for Point Park Athletics.
3, 2, 1.
Please visit our website. Please, it's a nice website. Please visit our website. Please.
If you have ever watched television, whether accidentally or on purpose, YouView is for you.
Welcome back to the halftime show as we are now in our final discussion of the day. And since it is September, that means that October is the next month coming, which means the postseason for Major League Baseball. As we welcome back Luke Mongelli to the show. He was on last week. Luke, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Yep, thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Luke, I want to get your opinion on who do you think was the biggest disappointment this season?
The biggest disappointment for me by far was the Boston Red Sox. I mean, just looking at their record, you couldn't tell that they just won the pennant. 79-71 with under 100 projected wins on the season, and less than a 1% chance of making the playoffs. Just the biggest disappointment for a title defending team.
Now, you mentioned that they won the pennant last year. How would you compare their performance last year to this year, and what makes them the biggest disappointment coming off of how they played last year?
Their bullpen has gotten a lot weaker since last year. And I think that, in general, has just, caused their downfall this year.
Yeah, I really wasn't surprised with Boston because I was expecting the Yankees to win the AL East. I mean, I guess I kind of was expecting Boston to maybe try to be like that first or second wild card team, but that does not seem to be a case now. Now, my biggest disappointment also comes to my biggest shocker as well. I'm actually picking the Philadelphia Phillies as the biggest disappointment. And the reason I am is because, because everyone knows that the Phillies made possibly like the biggest move of the offseason by signing Bryce Harper to, I believe it was a $330 million deal. But the reason that they're my disappointment was because the Nationals are better. They have a better record. They are sitting at 83-67 at the moment, and I believe they hold the first wild card. Yes, and I believe they hold the first wild card spot at the moment. And Philly has a 77-72 record right now, which, I mean, they are still fighting for a playoff spot. I believe they are 4 games back from that second wild card spot that so many other teams are trying to fight for. Yeah, but Luke, you and I were talking before the show, and one of the reasons that you said was because of their is because that Washington has the best bullpen in baseball. Do you have any opinion on why you might think that, or?
Just the numbers in general. Steven Strasburg, with his ERA being as low as it is, just quality starts from the Nationals bullpen in general has, given them this opportunity in the wild card game.
Yeah, very true. Now, still, in the end, though, I do think the Dodgers are going. I do believe the Dodgers are going to go to the World Series. I'm not going to say win it because of what has happened over the past 2 seasons. And in the American League, I just don't know. I feel that the American League is up in the air, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a rematch of the 2017 series. Who do you guys think is going to go to the World Series this year?
I got to give it to the New York Yankees. They've got the stuff this year to take it to the end, and you know what? I'm going to even go as far and say they win it.
You think?
Yeah.
I agree that the Yankees get there, but I don't know that they're gonna win it all.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with that.
I don't know. Saying that they're gonna win it all is it's another step that I'm just not willing to risk.
Yeah. Yep. Alrighty, folks. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Halftime Show, and we hope to see you right back here next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.